A new article popped up on my feed recently entitled, "I can't afford to play video games the way I want to." I won't go over the whole article here, as I'm sure you can probably guess the gist of it. Game prices have increased, I can't afford them, and I'm worried about the future. Now, game prices have seen their highest increase since the 8th generation console release over a decade ago. Up until that point, games had slowly seen a markup in price with each new generation leap. PlayStation 2 games were $40, PlayStation 3 $50, and PlayStation 4 $60, for AAA games at least. And then it kind of stagnated until recently, where Nintendo have announced that their prices are going up. $80 for a digital game and $90 for a physical version, an increase of 33%. That is quite a financial leap, and as the article summarizes, people are upset and are unable to afford the new titles. But on the other hand, there's this article from Forbes stating that we're actually underpaying for games. The games cost more to make now than before, and inflation simply hasn't matched their true value. So what is the truth? Is $90 too much, or is it too little? I know I'm quite late to the party here, and I know thousands of people have covered this topic, but I wanted to discuss it at length and give some explanation as to why the prices have increased, whether they are justified, the ramifications of this, and offer what I consider to be the only viable solution. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Oh, and if you do enjoy gaming discussions, please consider subscribing. Okay, so the first thing I want to figure out, is the price right? Is $90 a fair game price in today's economy when you adjust for inflation? Well, let's hear from the side that are defending this, the Forbes article by Eric Kane. Video games should be more expensive. There are a lot of shady practices that go on in the video game industry, from graphics downgrades to day one DLC, but a lot of the practices that bother consumers the most, from DLC to pre-order bonuses to microtransactions in full price games, are a result of one unpleasant truth: video games really ought to cost more thanks to inflation than they do today. The article states that Nintendo cartridges used to cost $70 back in '98, which would be the equivalent of $100 today when you adjust for inflation. Video games, on the other hand, have seen skyrocketing development costs, with much larger teams required to create a AAA product than in the past. Besides the larger teams, voice acting and scoring and other additional costs have been added. He also states that competition has led to increases in marketing costs. The fact is, games are actually cheaper than they were before, yet cost more to make. Games are underpriced at $60 and should really be $100 when adjusted for inflation. Okay, let's dissect this. First of all, one thing not calculated here is that the cost of distribution has gone down over the years. Discs are cheaper to create than cartridges. Digital downloads even cheaper, if at any cost at all, so that needs to be considered. We also need to consider that the gaming market has grown, with millions of gamers worldwide. Back in 1990, 33% of homes had a console. Today, that number is almost double, so more customers means more potential sales. So this means that the revenues are higher than they were before, or at least potentially. Now, just discussing the inflation aspect, since this appears to be the main argument made, wages have risen. Yes, but the cost of living has skyrocketed even faster. In the UK, the average house price jumped from £53,000 in 1990 to £282,000 today, quadrupling, whilst wages only doubled from £15,000 to £30,000. Electricity, about 5 times more expensive now than it was back then. This model applies across most common things like water bills, grocery costs, car bills, etc. The cost of living has grown far quicker than the wages have risen. Now, add to this, internet bills didn't exist in 1990, neither did cell phone payments or data plans. Everything nowadays is subscription based. Disney Plus, Netflix, Apple, Amazon, Ring doorbell, etc. So not only do we have more monthly outgoings now than we did before, but the ones that we had before have quadrupled in cost. So the bottom line is, yes, inflation has gone up, but wages are growing much slower than the costs are. That's the reason why we're currently in a cost of living crisis. Our costs are more than our income. The point is, people are struggling at the moment, with 65% of Americans currently living paycheck to paycheck, just surviving. So yes, we make more now than we did before on paper, but we get a lot less for it and have a lot less spare money lying around. And now, here's the main issue. Video games are a luxury good, something that we buy when we have all our essentials covered, a treat for when we have some extra cash after taking care of our needs. Water, electricity, Starbucks, I'm kidding, groceries, these are essentials, things that we need. Sports cars, bling watches, and video games, these are luxury goods. We only buy them when we're doing well. It's the last thing that we spend money on. And since we're all currently in a cost of living crisis, that means we will buy less luxury goods and less games if the price goes up. I don't know about most people watching this video, but money is tight for me. Now, I work a full-time job, and I also make 2 YouTube videos a week, and my spouse works full-time also. We are getting by. No kids, no debt, no Starbucks. So I work around 70 hours a week. Now, this kind of work ethic back in 1990 would probably mean that I'm driving a Ferrari and living in a mansion, or at the very least stacking up some cash. But in 2025, this is the norm, this is the requirement. Side hustles are no longer about getting extra money, it's about literally just making enough to survive, because without it, you're going to struggle. Many people nowadays have to work multiple jobs just to get by. So the argument I make is this. Things are tough right now, and people have very little money left over after they get their essentials. Increasing gaming prices by 33% just means less people can afford them. Inflation be damned. So whether games are worth $100 today when you calculate for inflation matters very little, if no one can really afford it. Or at the very least, it means people can buy less games than before. Let's say someone saved £120 a month for gaming. With a price of £60, it meant that they could buy 2 new games a month, or more if they shopped around. But if game prices jump to, say, £100, suddenly they can only buy the 1 a month. So as a result, less titles are sold as people have to be more selective with their money. So GTA 6 would be better off, but that new experimental indie title will suffer as people don't have the expendable cash to take the risk on it. It means less wealth spread around to multiple studios, with big names taking the majority of the cash. Now, the other argument that the article made is that DLCs and microtransactions are there to help make up for the low prices. The author is essentially stating that these exploitative sales tactics are out of necessity rather than greed. Come on. The gaming industry on the whole is worth a whopping $250 billion a year. GTA 5 generated $8.5 billion in sales, and one of the biggest revenue drivers, the sneaky microtransactions. Game prices may not have increased as much recently, but revenue certainly has, and so have profits. Microtransactions, loot boxes, and pre-order bonuses are engineered around the fear of missing out, and they use addictive reward loops, making players feel like they'll lose status, content, or opportunities if they don't buy right now. So my argument is, yes, maybe some game prices didn't grow directly with inflation, but gaming companies are certainly making more money than ever. Xbox just had a record year in sales. So the gaming industry as a whole is doing incredibly well and making plenty of money via these manipulative tactics. Games in 2005 may have cost less, but had no microtransactions. Fortnite is a free-to-play game. Literally, they charge $0 to play that game. It has made $42 billion since its release 7 years ago, and is considered one of the most profitable games of all time. So this completely contradicts the argument that game prices should be higher to make up for loss. So although some may argue that prices can be increased when you adjust for inflation, the point is it's not necessary. Studios have found other ways of sucking even more money out of customers than ever before. And let's say the price of the game went up to $100. Would that mean they immediately remove microtransactions since they no longer need that money? Absolutely not. By charging more, it's a case of AAA studios having their cake and eating it too. If the terms were that they could increase game prices, but they had to remove all microtransactions, I promise the price wouldn't change. AAA studios are making more than enough already, whereas the average consumer nowadays is barely getting by. So the main point is not necessarily that gamers disagree that game prices could increase due to inflation, just that they can't afford them if it happens. Wages have gone up, but life has gotten harder. The price increase does more damage to the consumer than good that it does to a AAA studio. And at the end of the day, you can increase the price to $200 if you want, but if no one can afford it, then the studios don't make any money. So what determines the price? Is it inflation, the cost of production, the brand? Well, in reality, it's us. The customer determines the price. I'm about to see a drop off in my view account now because I'm about to talk about economics. I know, we have to do it though. So, what determines the price of a product is the market. Now, this is a supply and demand chart. A supply and demand chart is one of the most common ways that economists and businesses explain how prices are set in the market. Gaming studios aim to find the price that maximizes profit. So let's look at a couple of examples. So let's say they charge $1 for a video game. Almost everyone would buy it. So say 10 million copies are sold. Revenue is $10 million. But if development costs are $50 million, then the studio would lose $40 million. Demand is huge, but the price is too low to cover the costs. Let's say they change the price to $200 per game. Well, only superfans could buy it. Maybe they sell 100,000 copies. Revenue is $20 million, and the costs are still $50 million. So the studio, once again, takes a loss of $30 million. The price is high, and there are too few sales to make it profitable. And then we find what we call the sweet spot, the equilibrium. Let's say it's $60. About 5 million copies sell. Revenue hits $300 million, and the cost, once again, is $50 million. So the profit is $250 million. This is the sweet spot. High enough to earn revenue, low enough to keep players buying. So gaming studios are always trying to find this sweet spot, and the ones who determine what the sweet spot is us. Let's use the Nintendo Switch 2 as an example. Now, I could make 1,000 videos online complaining about the price. These videos could get millions of views and supporters who are like, yeah, you're right. We could write blogs. We could complain to Nintendo. We could go to news outlets. But all of that doesn't matter. Nintendo don't care. The only thing they care about is our wallets. Did we pay the price? Did the console sell enough units? That's why some YouTubers set an awful example when this console was released. Now, I won't name names, I don't want any trouble, but some of them asked their fans to boycott the Switch too, and then went and bought it themselves. Now, they went on to complain about how it was a bad investment, but that's not the point. They bought it. The price and market value is determined by the consumer. So if I complain that the price is too high and still buy it, then I've indirectly told Nintendo that the price is just right. That's why they didn't lower the price despite the criticism. The only way the price will ever drop is when not enough people buy the product. So we could complain about the prices before we buy, and we can complain about the prices after we buy. But as long as we buy, it doesn't matter. Check this out. Nintendo Switch 2 has now surpassed 2 million units sold in the US life to date. It is currently 75% ahead of the unit sales pace set by the original Nintendo Switch. So none of that matters. To Nintendo, the price is perfect as they're selling out. In fact, it might be too low. If only 10% of the consoles sold, they would lower the price. The only way to truly see a change in gaming prices and the constant increase of them is to stop buying. The minute customers do that, then the prices will soon drop afterwards. Borderlands 4 released 3 versions of their game recently. The base game was £70, the deluxe was £90, and the super deluxe was £120. That's in pounds, so it's even more in dollars. It's very expensive. Guess what? They just set a record launch day with 200,000 consecutive players. Is the price too high? Absolutely not. If the majority of customers will pay it, then the price is right. But then again, we might hear these same people complain afterwards that it was too much money and they feel like they've been ripped off. But the damage has already been done. The fact most regret it after, that doesn't matter. Complain about it after all you want. You already paid, and that is where the price is determined, not after. The game will be available for a 90% discount in a year's time. Why not wait? Well, because you'd be missing out. Remember, these companies have mastered the art of manipulation and the fear of missing out. They know that players will want to get the super deluxe so they can get the special cosmetic add-ons. It's a sad cycle, but it certainly works. Here's an example of it working before release. Paradox is refunding PlayStation pre-orders of Vampire: The Masquerade Premium Edition as it rethinks its plan to charge extra for 2 playable clans following community backlash. They wanted to charge a full price for the game and then make players pay extra to actually get the full experience. Fans protested by cancelling orders, and guess what happened? They refunded customers and said they would include all factions in the base game. So in a nutshell, they lowered their price. Customers always get a say through their wallets, but this has to happen before, not after. If they'd sold 1 million copies of this game with this model and people complained after, well, it's far too late at that point. Games are becoming a rich person's hobby, not because they have to, but because enough people are willing to pay. The fact that almost all AAA games are selling more now than ever showcases that the price is clearly not an issue for some people. For some people, it is an issue, but indie titles like Silksong, Tainted Grail, among others, have offered their titles for far less. This accommodates those who can't afford the new AAA prices. The bottom line, as long as people keep paying, prices will keep climbing. If someone wants to drop £120 on a cosmetic add-on, that's their choice, but it guarantees that studios won't lower costs. Whereas more frugal or casual players, they aren't the target audience anymore. I've seen someone spend $300 on Fallout 76 microtransactions in minutes. As long as whales like that exist, publishers will always cater to them. Game prices are spiraling, but as long as people keep buying, nothing will change. We can complain all day that the Switch 2 is overpriced, but if it sells out, studios see that as proof that the price is right. AAA publishers will keep raising costs until the day enough players finally say, no, I won't buy it. That's when prices will come down. Until then, the real truth is simple. The biggest exploit in gaming isn't microtransactions or DLC, it's us paying for them. But anyway, that's it for this one, but what do you guys think? Do you feel that prices are too high? Do you agree with my assessment? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please give it the thumbs up, and if you do enjoy video game analysis, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, Av out.